Hello and welcome to the webinar hosted by names.co.uk and Register 365 on how to test your business idea online. I'm Mike Bander and I'm the co-founder of Hopper, among a few other businesses. And in the next half an hour, we're going to take you through how to identify the pitfalls, potential pitfalls of your business early on, how to set up tests to see if your ideas work and how to generate interest and push traffic to your business. And also how you can gain potential customers and valuable feedback, as well as developing and adapting your business plan. So let's get started straight into it. The key principle of today is I'm going to run you through 3 simple steps of how to test your idea online. So this is relevant for you if you have an existing business idea, or if you have a few things which you might like to do, and you haven't done anything yet. But it's also relevant if you have started launching a business, or you're looking at launching a business, and no matter what stage you're at, these 3 steps can be implemented into your business to really develop your idea to the next level, wherever it may be. So really quick bit of background. I run a company called Term Partners, and Term Partners is primarily focused on the acquisition and turnaround of broken businesses. But we also create our own businesses from scratch, if you like, our own startup businesses. And we're a slightly different setup to the traditional sense of a tech business and the popular media sense of a tech business, where they raise lots of money, employ lots of people, and just throw money at problems. What we do is we're essentially bootstrapped, so we're fully self-funded, and we actually test concepts to ensure that ideas can be really, really good business ideas before we put lots of investment into them. So a few years ago, we started a company called Probox, which is fitness supplements by subscription. We've actually ended up closing Probox down, but the lessons from that are invaluable, particularly when starting a business with these 3 steps. And also in May 2013, we actually acquired a niche dating agency called Toy Boy Warehouse, and spent the last 2 years doing a turnaround project on that. And in the literally last 3 months, we've just launched Hopper at hopperhq.com, which is essentially a scheduling app for Instagram. Now, even though these businesses are all very different, the one thing that does link them is that they're predominantly online, and we've been able to test them in a really efficient way, so I'll just take you through that. The 3 key steps on how to test your business idea is firstly how to identify assumptions within your business. Now, assumptions really are the unknown parts of your business. They're the things little leaps and jumps which we make when we think of our idea. And really identifying what those are is the first step on. There's a lot more information on that very soon. The second step is about minimum viable products. And this is a mechanism which can enable us to test our business idea, improve the concept, and actually enable us to launch a business within 4 weeks. And finally, we're going to talk briefly about how to attract visitors online. So this is how you can get people relatively quickly and cheaply to look at your products and help you test the concept. So our focus today is really on real business and real relationships. We're really focusing on value creation for both you and your business model, and how your business can create value for those who consume it. And also we're going to be really focusing on how we can be as efficient and sustainable as possible. Now, whether you have an MBA in business or you haven't even opened a business book ever before, it doesn't really matter what your business background is, because it all comes down to this very, very simple slide here. No matter what you know or what you've been told or learned, try and simplify your understanding of business to this simple box. If a business is in the middle, then you have inputs into your business. So this can be time, this can be money, this can be raw resources, this can be nuts and bolts. Then all the business does is it adds value into the top of the box. And by adding value, that is the thing which you do to make sure that the outputs are worth more than the inputs. So if it's a case of just soldering some nuts and bolts together, or whether it's a case of adding great customer service onto something, that value is what you give to your customers, which they essentially pay more for, rather than the sum of the inputs. Now, there's Obviously, a lot more complexity to business, but really the principles are as simple as this. And try never to overcomplicate that, particularly when testing out an idea or concept. And finally, the one things that we must remember are no matter what your business is, ultimately it needs to make money. And by making money, it enables you to kind of build the business, and that's often a sign of business success. But in order to make money, you need to offer value to people. To find what that value is, or to provide that value to people, you need to create products or services. And to find the right products or services, you really need to understand those customers. And the way we understand customers to decide what products or services can carry the value, you really need to validate issues and solutions. So really, that's the chain of process which we're going through today. So firstly, assumptions. Now, assumptions are basically the difference between our ideas, our business dreams, concepts and ideas, and reality, what the real world actually is. So it starts, our assumptions kind of are hiding in all different areas. So the difference between ideas and reality can be on our perspective of the world, how we interpret things and how we understand things, what we're interested in. Also demographics. So we've previously run a business targeted predominantly at older women, but my business partner and I are both kind of late 20s guys. So our perception of the world and our actual demographic is different to the target market. So sometimes the things that we assume that we understand about our target market isn't always correct. Also, the difference between ideas and reality are how our competitors react. So will competitors react in a way if they want to out-innovate us or attack us or defend their existing market? Now, what these assumptions are basically they represent uncertainty. So these are the small things we think of when we dream up our business. So they're the things that might not be right. So say, for example, if we're dreaming of running a fitness supplement company, an assumption we might have is that we can actually buy lots of protein powder to sell to our customers, but we don't know for sure that we can actually buy it in the quantity and for the price that we want. So that's an assumption that you have about your business. Now, all of these different assumptions are essentially the elephants in the room, and those elephants in the room really create an area of uncertainty for our business. So it's fine for there to be uncertainty, but as long as we know that that exists, we can then work to try and eliminate that uncertainty, which is the ultimate aim of building a more sustainable and robust business concept. So to put this into a proper example to kind of see how that impacts on business, I want to explain to you briefly the case of Probox. So Probox was a fitness supplement company by subscription. Most of you will know that people who consume fitness supplements, like protein powders, they'll buy it in a big tub which will last them about a month. But we thought that lots of people didn't like this because the tubs were quite difficult to store, you were locked into one flavour for a whole month, and if you wanted to take an individual serving to the gym, you'd have to decant it into a different box or bag. So we came up with the concept of providing individual serving sachets with a mix of flavoured, delivered weekly through your letterbox, and people pay by subscription. So you can see a little picture of Probox Mark 1 in the bottom right there, and James and I at the top. So it's a very simple concept. We spoke to a few people about it. Everybody liked the concept, but the process we went through was, instead of just launching the business and buying tons of protein and lots of marketing spend, we basically went through the process of identifying what assumptions we'd made when we created this business concept. So number one, we assumed that people would purchase fitness supplements online. We also assumed that people would subscribe to regularly receive fitness supplements, which was quite important for our business model. We did work out slightly more expensive, so we did assume we would pay a premium for the convenience of having them in individual sachets rather than a big box. And you can see down the list here that there's just lots of different assumptions that we had. The fact that people would have only one protein shake a day, because if that was incorrect and people had 2 protein shakes a day, then a box of 7 wouldn't last them a week. So try and think about all the different assumptions which you have in your business. And in order to uncover that uncertainty and just like find out where those assumptions are, it's often difficult to do on our own business because we don't identify the difference between ourselves and the real world. Um, so the key kind of areas to really investigate into your business concept and your idea are firstly the market. So what are you proposing for your consumer pain points? And actually, are people really having a problem where you think they're having a problem? Secondly, around competition. So who else is working in the space? And how different is your offering to competitors? What is your competitive advantage and how robust is that? What assumptions have you made about how you can be competitive? Also, what assumptions have you made around your product? So what value do you propose to offer to your customers? What's your value proposition? And actually, the assumptions that you've made are around the value proposition are, do people actually want it and can you offer that? There's lots of assumptions around price as well. So will people be willing and able to pay for the price that you need to charge for that? And can you be profitable on that price? There's also lots of assumption around the supply and product creation, marketing reach. A lot of people just assume people will find their websites, but you really need to figure out how much getting people onto your website will cost. So I'd urge everybody to really just take a few moments out and just focus on where the assumptions are within their business model. What little skips and jumps have they made in their head when they are dreaming how their business will become? And actually try and then focus on making that, identifying those areas as assumptions because they represent the uncertainty within your business. So once you've got a list of kind of about 10, 15 or 20 assumptions, really push yourself to identify these assumptions. And make them quite granular. I assume that people will purchase fitness supplements online. Have an assumption is almost like a statement. You assume something will happen. Once you've made those assumptions, you can prioritize and order them. Firstly, by what the biggest critical success factors are to your business. So you'll notice right at the top of the Probox list was that people buy fitness supplements online. Now, that's quite an obvious one, but actually if people didn't do that, then it means that the whole business just wouldn't work. So it's very important. And then secondly, prioritize them in order of what is essential to being competitive. So as you noticed on the Probox list, we mentioned that if people weren't willing to pay a premium for individual sachets, then essentially we're not being competitive because people would just pay less and deal with having one big box. So once we've identified all of these assumptions, what we're trying to do next is push through this essentially a feedback loop to try and eliminate that uncertainty. So at the top we have the ideas, which essentially in this case is the assumptions that we have. And then we need to try and understand by building out and testing these assumptions whether or not how people react to them. So we build various different tests and measure how people react to them. And then we use that data to essentially learn whether or not those assumptions are true or false, correct or not correct. And then we develop new assumptions and improve our idea. This isn't something that you do once. You basically, it's a cyclical thing which you can continue to do. So how do we do that? Once we've got a list of assumptions, the second step is really to build a minimum viable product. This enables us to test assumptions and concepts as quickly as possible. And what a minimum viable product is essentially the quickest, cheapest, easiest, most lightweight version, which includes the value that you're hoping to provide to customers to see how they react when you try and provide that value to them. So, as the picture represents, if you're trying to test the assumption that people want to communicate with one another when not being in the same room, instead of building a whole mobile network, which we're doing today, which people have done today, you might just start off with 2 tin cans with a bit of string in between and see how people communicate with one another. So, in the real world, there's quite a few different examples of minimum viable products. And here's just a few which are most relevant for people looking to do startup online businesses or testing concepts. Firstly, it's the explainer video. And the explainer video really enables us to show people what value we propose to create without actually building any technology out. So a short video explaining what you do and why people should buy it. Now, Dropbox is a fantastic example of this. For those of you who don't know, Dropbox is a really famous and well-used file sharing application. And before building out the full technical infrastructure, they just created a short video and they drove people to look at the video, and they actually had 5,000 people sign up based on that first video. Now, instead of just building out the product for those 5,000 people, they spoke to as many of them as they possibly could, and they asked the questions: why did you sign up? What features do you like? What features don't you like as much? And then based on that, they used that feedback, they learned from that to then create new assumptions and develop a new video to understand whether or not they, to create the features, take out things that weren't used. And then in their second video, when they launched that, they received an additional 70,000 sign-ups in one day. Now, for Dropbox, they were able to change the features that they had really easily by just changing a few slides and a voiceover in a video rather than building out the technology. A really, really simple version of a minimum viable product, and something that we can all do literally today, is a brief landing page. Now, a landing page is a simple splash page, one page splash page, which just explains what you do and who you are. So you can kind of have a nice image, explain what the concept is. And normally people will have a simple email capture, a little form where people can subscribe for more information. And based on how many people they send to the site, they can see what sort of percentage of people are signing up. It's a really nice way to see, firstly, how many people discover it organically and how many people would sign up based on the bit of information you give them. And with Domain Name Plus, which is a product with names.co.uk and Register 365, you actually get a free website and email account with every domain that you purchase. So you can actually pop up a basic landing page. Another one of my favourites, is actually a prototype. So a prototype is a live website which looks like it's a existing business that can take orders before products are actually created. So on the left there, you can see a picture of the first ever box of Probox. And this was actually created by just on Photoshop, so it was an image created rather than a specific photo. And we explained on the website what Probox is, what value it proposed, what flavors that we had, and we actually then asked people, instead of asking them whether or not they would sign up, we actually just asked them to sign up to try and assess what behavior they had. So people selected their flavors, and as they went through to the payment page, we actually then had a pop-up which apologized that we hadn't actually yet launched and would get back to them as soon as possible. Now, seeing what people actually do is really invaluable because it enables us, as Probox, we had 200 customers, essentially, who were going to sign up before we even decided whether we were going to the next stage with the business. Now, this then enabled us to say, okay, maybe we'll do like this concept, and then we went to the next stage by actually building out the product. Another minimum viable product is the Flintstone, and the Flintstone is a live website which serves customers, but it's almost a lot more work which is going on behind the scenes. It's not as automated and slick as it looks. So Zappos.com, which is actually the world's largest online shoe retailer, that was previously bought by Amazon. The founder of Zappos wanted to provide the value of fantastic customer service, and he had the assumption that if people had really, really good customer service, then actually they'll buy more shoes online and they'll buy them back from Zappos. So what he did was he set up a website, a shoe website, and instead of buying hundreds and hundreds of shoes or thousands of shoes, he just took pictures from other websites and went down to his local shoe shop and took pictures on there. Then actually he drove traffic to the site, and every item of every shoe that he sold, he provided really good customer service, and he offered a 365-day return policy. So this is essentially the value he wanted to create. Every time he made a sale, he actually went down to the shoe shop, bought that shoe, validated learning. And also then to amend your offering incrementally through testing and iteration. So the case of Zappos, the shoe retailer, he wasn't trying to make money by every shoe that he sold, but he was trying to seek the validated learning that yes, people are buying a pair of shoes and they're coming back to buy another one because they like the customer service. And this then fits back into the whole process of eliminating uncertainty. We have an assumption, we build out the minimum viable product, we measure how people react to it. We use that data to learn about whether or not that assumption is true or false, and then we create another idea, develop the assumptions, or develop the concepts off the back of that. So you've really got to think about when you create your MVP, choosing what are the most important assumptions or the core assumptions from your prioritized list. Then trying to think about what core values need to be included. So back to the case of Zappos, if he was testing the assumption that people would buy more shoes if they had fantastic customer service, his minimum viable product had to include fantastic customer service. Also, then you've got to look at how you can provide this value with low or no design, develop, marketing, and finance cost. So basically, what's the cheapest way and the quickest way of providing that value and testing how people react to it? Before you do the test, I'd really recommend that you look at identify what success and failure looks like. So specifically, if you're driving 1,000 people to a website, how many of them need to put in their email address for it to be a success? And under that number, then the test hasn't worked out, it's been a failure. But critically, what does success and failure mean? Just because you don't get 1,000 people out of 1,000 people signing up on your mailing list doesn't mean that the concept is totally kaput. It just means that it isn't right in its current iteration. And what can you learn about to improve that going forward? So I just want to share something with a friend of mine who I actually shared an office with in 2010. He founded a company called LocalBeat, and he didn't do this process. He actually didn't speak to his customers. The existing product, or what LocalBeat was going to be, was essentially a centralized website which drew together all of the news, information, events, offers and promotion, maps, forums, conversation, discounts into one website, whether anything that you wanted. And he had this great idea, but he didn't test his assumptions. He didn't speak to customers to see what people actually wanted. He didn't look at what other websites were doing. He was just confident that when all of these things together, it would be a winning recipe. And he developed it for 8 months in isolation and secret. He wouldn't share it with anybody else. He didn't want to let other people see what it was. He had a top secret design, and he kept on missing various different launches. So this went on for about 8 months, and then this happened. Absolutely nothing. The danger of not testing your assumptions and not going through these incremental steps is that you, more often than not, will end up by never launching anything, or if you launch something, it will be so far away from what people actually want to consume and what value people actually want that it's really difficult to build into a sustainable business. So finally, we're going to look at very, very briefly at how to drive traffic to your test. So it's all well and good having these minimum viable products up, testing your various assumptions, and it's but how do you get people onto your website? So to explain this a bit, I just wanted to explain briefly about Hopper. So Hopper is essentially the world's first fully automated scheduling tool for Instagram. So we spoke to lots of brands that are basically really doing some great and in real time. So what we've provided is we enable people to create a post from their desktop. They create their image, upload it into there, and they just put in a small caption, select the time and date in which it wants to go out, and then we do the rest. So it enables people to be a lot more efficient with the marketing which they're doing. It saves them time, it increases their engagement, and it cuts out a lot of moving around of images. So the concept was very, very simple. Scheduling tool for Instagram. And we actually built a minimum viable product after we tested the concept. But we needed to drive people to the site as soon as possible to try and validate it and get some early customers on. Now, the few options available to you as kind of like a startup online business, not all of them are good for every test. So a few of them are developing really, really great content. Specifically, if you are an expert in your field, so if you're really good at SEO or online marketing or biomimetics or whatever it may be, producing really interesting content is a great way of getting relevant people onto your website. Also, by having lots of good content on your site, it increases your search engine optimization, which is essentially a way of appearing higher on Google for the search results, for the search key terms and relevant searches. Now, the difficulty with content and search engine optimization is it takes quite a long time to start ranking and start appearing and building up that trust with the search engines. So if you're trying to drive traffic quickly and through a test, then search engine optimization often isn't the best, quickest way to do it. Another option is through affiliate marketing. And this is essentially, if you're making sales on your website, you form agreements with individual people who have a relevant marketing reach or readership within people who might be interested in your product. And you just say to them, every person that you pass to my site that ends up making a sale, you'll get 20% or 10% of the amount that they buy. And there's lots of different software to enable you to manage this affiliate relationships, and it's a really great way to get lots of people talking about your products online. Another great channel is through pay-per-click advertising. Now this is basically you pay a certain amount for every time somebody clicks from a publisher like Google, Facebook or LinkedIn, clicks on one of your ads and goes onto your website. So for the case of Google, you can essentially look at the people who are searching for, say, fitness supplements by subscription, and every time we bid on that keyword and it appears an advert up at the top of Google, we pay them a small amount every time someone clicks on them. Now this is a really great way of getting traffic onto your site quickly, but you do need a small amount of budget to actually try and drive some traffic. Social media is also another great channel, but you've got to remember, similar to the content, firstly you need the content itself, and then you also need the audience to actually get people onto that. So social media is an interesting one to do, but it does also take a bit of time to build up. Another one which has been really good for Hopper, and you'll notice the ones in bold are the ones which we've actually used for Hopper, is by doing various different forms of email capture. So we run various different competitions and we do different referral schemes to get people to enter their email address. We also offer ebooks and information on Instagram marketing in exchange for their email address. And then once we've got someone's email capture, we then push that into an email campaign where we continue to contact them over a few weeks and months to actually drive them onto the website, provide them more information and more value, and then we can essentially hopefully make sales when they come back onto the site in a nice, informed way. So I'd recommend, specifically if you're trying to get people online quickly, a bit of pay-per-click advertising and then through email capture. So they're the kind of 3 key tips, and I have a challenge for those of you on the webinar. And the main challenge really is to try and launch your first product or service within 4 weeks. Now, I've mentioned this to a few people in the past, and I've often thought 4 weeks is just no time at all. But by your first product or service, I don't mean the business which you hope to run in 5-10 years' time. I mean the very first iteration or the first test of your business, testing assumptions, getting out into the public domain to see how people are reacting. And when you think of it like that, 4 weeks is actually a huge amount of time. So in summary, you really got to think about what value are you creating and what's your value proposition. Then take a step back and try and look objectively at your business idea and concept to look at what assumptions you've made and try and eliminate that uncertainty. Then look at how you can test if people will buy your product, so what's your minimum viable product? And whilst you're building that, try and think about how you can drive that traffic online. So what are your chosen channels of that list or other ones you might come across? I wish you all to dream big, shout loud, and change fast. And thank you very, very much for listening. A few quick things before you go. If you are going to take up the challenge of launching your first product or service within 4 weeks, you might be able to just launch a landing page just to have a presence on the internet and see how people are interacting with your idea. Names.co.uk and Register365 actually provide a free site builder, free email and free stock images with every domain that you buy from them. So if you do buy a domain or you've bought a domain from them, you can essentially just pop up a really quick, easy splash page with a nice image, a nice description about what you do, and essentially then you'll be able to start seeing how many people are interacting with your website. If you've got any questions, then I'm always happy to help, as are names.co.uk and Register365. So please just email into webinars@freeobt.com, or you can contact on the website or phone numbers below. You can also contact me directly. Best way is on Twitter, at Mike Bander in the bottom right. And if you have any questions, please just contact out, and I'm more than happy to discuss new ideas and the best ways of testing them. Hope you enjoyed that, and I look forward to speaking to some of you offline, and do check out the new webinars coming up soon. Have a great day and best of luck.